Okay, yay. Hi, how are you?
Really well. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you on. Our kids' safety, especially online, is one of our top priorities at the moment because it just feels like such a big, scary place online. And sometimes I feel like as an adult, I wasn't even taught the rights, like guardrails or safety measures, because everything was just being built as I was becoming an adult. And so now these social platforms have been in existence for a little while, and guardrails have had to come up because we need to protect our kids. So I'm so excited to have you on. We should just start with giving you a chance to introduce yourself and just give us a little bit of background about your journey and how you got to this position today.
Yeah, I'm really happy to. Again, like, thank you so much for having me on. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. I am a pretty curious person. I think like a lot of people out there, and I studied humanities when I was in college. I spent the early part of my career in the political world in Brussels, actually in the European institutions. And I worked on issues around human rights and children's rights really kind of early in my career. And I found it fascinating and challenging and difficult, and kind of where the interaction and the intersection is between children's rights and business and government and parenting. And even before I was a parent myself, I just found that whole space incredibly interesting. I spent some time in nonprofit, so I worked for a really large children's charity, a child protection charity, on some pretty tough issues. And then I came to the conclusion that actually, really, where the biggest impact can often be in making children's lives better is in the private sector. The private sector has huge scale, has huge impact, and when the private sector gets things right, it can just have a phenomenal effect. When the private sector gets things wrong, similarly. And so I moved across, and then my journey with Instagram started about 6 years ago. And at that point, I was a parent already. I had a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old when I first joined Instagram. And and honestly, that was a big part of why I wanted to move across and work in the tech industry, because it's, as you say, it's so relevant. We were all growing up in it, and I thought my children are growing up in this, and they're digital natives, and I'm not. I mean, you grew up when you were kind of in that frontier generation. Like for me, I remember when I sent my first email, I was like in
Right.
my 20s. I mean, so the difference between me and my children is actually quite a big one.
hmm
So I thought, and also like Instagram is an amazing platform, and it brings
It's the
so much
best. It's
joy.
my favorite one.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
Yeah,
It brings joy. It's like it's a
it
fun,
does.
it does. And I think working with, amazing people, but also for a platform where it really has a global impact, is really important to me and the people that I work with. So yeah, it's been a kind of crazy journey. But I love it, and it feels relevant, and I feel like, not to sound trite, but like we're really making a difference. And when
Yeah.
we get things right, it really does matter.
Yeah. So tell me, what were some of the biggest problems that you were facing when you first moved there? And what were some of the things that you were seeing in kids when it came to social media that you were like, I need to get on this and do something about this?
Yeah, so when I first joined, it's 6 years ago, and Meta, obviously Instagram is owned by Meta, and Meta has been working on teens, on kind of youth well-being and youth well-being issues for years, honestly, for like over a decade. And when I joined, actually, it was really good to see there was so much thought went into how to keep younger people safe when they're using our platforms. And on Instagram, it is a very kind of teen first platform. It's a place where teens do particularly love, and not exclusively, but a place where teens really do love to be and to spend time. And so I think one of the things that we've probably done that's changed or been done differently in the last few years is really listening to parents. And I think, you said at the beginning, I think, parents are, it maybe in the beginning when social media was kind of first taking off, and kind of the internet more large, or like the phone, we talk about the phone at home, not just like one platform or another platform. Um, I think, we all were in kind of trying to navigate it all at the same time, not really understanding how to do that. I think what's really changed is for us at Instagram is just going out and having deep conversations with parents, really, really understanding where parents are most concerned, what are the things they worry about, what are the things they're happy about, and and the same things came up over and over again in the last few years, and we've been having these, I would say, deeper conversations with parents. So and that's parents in the US. Obviously, we're, US company. We focus very heavily here in the US, but also we go and talk to parents across the globe. And the same things have come up, which is who can my teen be contacted by when they use Instagram? That was a major thing. What is the content that they're seeing? Is it safe? Is it age appropriate? Like, are they coming across content that they shouldn't be seeing? It's, a very natural concern of a parent. And then the third one was, what's the time that they're spending? Is it time well spent? Are they kind of scrolling and it's like not good, and it's not
And
not
they're wishing that they were here, or they're having FOMO, or that's the biggest thing for me right now. I mean, I have an 8-year-old, so I don't have a teen yet, and we'll get into that. But yeah, it's for me, the biggest thing is like him seeing these lives, which is something that I think about and it affects me. And I have so many more emotional skills than him. So I worry how it affects him. But seeing these lives that are like so beautiful and great, or they're doing all these things, or they're spending all this money, and that they see that this is almost like normal, and then their everyday life becomes more mundane, and thus then they get depressed. That is my biggest fear.
I think that's a completely natural, like, parenting instinct. And you like, we all want to raise children who are grounded, who have aspirations and have ambition, but also they feel really comfortable in their own skin. And I think Instagram, like social media, I think it can play a really important role when they are, using it in a positive way, when they're using it kind of for all the right reasons, which is connect and engage, and how those things are really important to teens, particularly, as teens are kind of growing older, and their use of social media changes. I think it's one of the things we really focused on with creating teen accounts, which spoken about before, which is making sure that the younger teens are in protective experiences that actually they can't change without the parents being involved, without the parents approving. I think that's really important. Um, so that's one of the things that we really focused on, is like making sure that we were providing protections for all teens under the age of 18. But for those younger teens, that actually is kind of bringing the parents into the conversation if the teenager does want to change any of these more default settings. So that's definitely been part of our thinking. And you're right in that you want the peace of mind that that when your son, when he is eventually using social media, that you feel comfortable that actually when he's using, hopefully, Instagram, if he does, that he's having an experience that you feel comfortable about.
Right.
He's got all of these protections on, and
Guardrails.
can't change any of them, exactly, guardrails, without you being in the conversation. I think that's what's really changed in the last few years, is that parents really actively want to be part of these conversations. But we also understand that parents they're busy, they might be working parents, they've got other children, they've got, like, other things going on in their lives and in their children's lives. And so we really want to be able to create a place, a
A
space
safe
that they
place.
know that their teen is on Instagram and having a really positive experience,
Hmm.
defaulted into our most protective experiences. Parents don't have to be involved if they don't have the time to. But if they do want to be involved, actually, there is a way that they can through the supervision tool on Instagram. And they know that their teen, when they're using the app, can't change any of these settings if they're under 16 without talking to you first. I really think that's the most important thing that we've probably done with teen accounts, is to bring the parent into the conversation, but putting the parent at the heart of the product.
Yeah, that's so major. I think the supervision is so major. For me, I'm like, on one hand, I don't want that. Like, I don't want to be that parent that is like so involved, and the helicopter parent. And I feel like sometimes that breeds the kids that then go out and rebel more. But I think, listen, these kids are still teenagers, and we forget that, like, we are the bosses. And even though these kids seem older beyond their years and they're so mature and they're exposed to so much, like we're still the bosses. And as teens, there still needs to be supervision. And like this is supervision, even though it feels weird because it's you're like looking into their phone in some way. This is a new form of supervision that we all need to take part in as adults in 2025, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've hit the nail on the head in that I think what we did with teen accounts is that teens are moved across into the teen account experience if they're under the age of 18. And that means that we have more protective experiences for who can contact your teen, the content that they see, time limits, time restrictions around the amount of time they're spending on our app and things like we default them into a private account. So and if they want to change that to a public account, they can't do that if they're under the age of 16 without bringing you, the parent, in. So that's all done automatically, kind of behind the scenes. And as I said, we hope it gives parents that reassurance. But if parents do want to be more involved, and particularly I would encourage like parents of younger teens when they're first joining social media, they're 13, they're 14, so different to being a 16 or a 17-year-old. We all remember it as teens, right? It's just there's such a huge difference between a 13-year-old and a 17-year-old. So you can you can be in the parental supervision tool. Particularly I would encourage, as I said, if your teen is a bit younger, that does give you extra insights. And it's really simple and easy. I would encourage parents to have a look. But the insights are things like there's a dashboard, a really easy to see dashboard, which shows you who your teen has been messaging over the last 7 days. It doesn't show the messages. I think we've really tried to strike the right balance between the right of that young person to privacy. But the parent, you might as a parent say, I'd like to know at least who they're contacting, who they're in touch with. So you can see that in the insights tool on parental supervision. Last 7 days, all the accounts that your teen has been direct messaging with and communicating with. You can also see everyone that your teen is following and all the accounts they're following, so you can kind of have a chat about it. And it might be public figures, it might be friends at school, it might be, from the sports club or whatever, but like you can see and you can have that offline conversation. And then the other thing it allows you to do, which I love, which is you can actually block, you can put in blocks for the time limits for your teen. So we already default everyone under the age of 18 into a time limit reminder of 60 minutes per day. We've also built, and I think this is really important, is what's called the sleep mode. Automatically turned on between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. No matter where you are in the world, we turn this on if you're in a teen account experience. And it means we mute all
All
notifications
notifications.
in the evenings. Um, but if you're in the parental supervision tool, you can take that step further and you can just completely block Instagram for a certain period of time. So that might be just completely block it at night or during school hours or, on a Saturday when you're having family time, completely block it. Now, we'd hope that people have that conversation with their teen about it, and it kind of encourages those conversations. But yeah, the parent, if they wish to, they can make a complete blocking, which I think is really kind of giving parents a bit of kind of more agency.
Power. Agency.
Exactly, yeah, agency
Hmm.
over their teenagers' time use on Instagram, but without it being too intrusive. And we really hope it kind of encourages offline conversations as well. Like that's, you don't want to be communicating with your teenager through like an app. Of course you don't. You want to be able to have these conversations around the dinner table and when you're driving to the supermarket and all of those kind of more normal and natural ways to do it. So we hope we've struck the right balance. I'd be really interested in what your listeners think, what you think.
Yeah. No,
Um,
so I'm so curious because, like I said, I only have a 7-year-old, and we signed a pledge in his class, in his kindergarten class, that was wait until 8, no social media until 8th grade. So wait until eighth, it was called. And so I haven't fully had to dive into this yet or set restrictions. I am seeing this on YouTube with him. And so I'm curious to hear about, you said, you remind me how old your kids are.
yeah, they're 15 and 12.
Okay, 15 and
Yeah.
12. So do you feel comfortable talking about their experiences with social media? Yeah.
Yes, of
Okay.
course, very happy to.
Oh, my son just walked in. Hi, honey. How are you? I have this podcast and then I'll be done at 10, okay? It's 9:22. Okay. Love you.
That's lovely.
Um,
Working
so
with
so tell me, like, as someone who is very versed in protecting our children, what were your personal rules with social media when it came to your kids?
Yeah, it's a great question because I'd like to say I walk the walk. I don't. I get things wrong just like
So
everyone
hard.
else. It's really hard, really hard. So my 15-year-old daughter has social media. You know, you should be 13 before you join Instagram, and would really encourage parents to have those conversations and make sure that their teen tells us the right age because we build age appropriate experiences knowing, when we know the age of your teen. But um, she's had social media for a few years, and I talk to her all the time and to her friends about their experiences and what they worry about and what they're seeing. So it has a big, I kind of use them as a sounding block. And there's a few things that come up. I think the contact piece, like teenagers don't want to be contacted by people that they don't know.
Yeah,
Uh,
I feel like they would be scared. Like, I
they
think that
want
that
to
would, you don't want that.
No, and I think so. A lot of what we've done with teen accounts is really like responding to very natural things that both teens and parents
Don't want.
worry about and don't want. So my daughter would tell me that, and she's been moved into the teen account experience. And what I really loved about it is she didn't even notice. She honestly didn't even notice. So we send a notification to teens to tell them it's going to happen. We use language that's like really resonates with teens. We did a bunch of research to make sure that we were speaking the language of teens. But for my daughter, she's had a private account. I have always encouraged her. We default young people into private accounts already, like under the age of 18. Um, but she didn't really notice that the teen account experience had been moved across because I think she just appreciated it, which was really, really good to see. I think the other thing that's interesting is that teenagers like they jump between apps. And that's something I really learned from her is that they will jump between Instagram and Snap and TikTok and YouTube Shorts and they will like jump around all the time and that I think parents need to know and understand that
Yeah.
your teenager is probably not spending like endless amounts of time on one app. That's not what they do. And they're jumping. They're using some for messaging and some for sharing, fun content, and different groups of friends use different apps in different ways. So I do encourage people to have conversations with their teens about what apps they're using. Because that's what I learned from my daughter is that she doesn't use one app exclusively at all. Um, with my son, so he's 12 and he also doesn't have social media, but you talked about YouTube. So he has on on our family iPad, he looks at YouTube and YouTube Shorts. We've set up all the protections there, but I have to be really, really careful, boys and girls, different personalities. Like I think he gets pulled in a bit more than my daughter does. And so I have to be really careful about that, and I have to make sure that I'm limiting his time. And sometimes that's hard. As I said, sometimes I get that right, and sometimes I get that wrong. He also games, so daughter doesn't really. He loves it, and there are some brilliant things about gaming, the strategy and all of that kind of stuff. But it's also just time on the screen. So I have to really, really be careful of that because I don't want him to constantly be gaming. I don't want, him to be spending time on the iPad or too much time. So actually I have to be really, even though he's not on social media, he's not at that age yet. Actually, he's using
He's using all these things.
the
He's
screen.
seeing
Yeah.
how social media works and
Yeah.
he's interacting with screens and seeing a lot of content that maybe he shouldn't even be seeing on YouTube. But that's the hard part is like you guys are doing such an amazing job of this, but when is everybody going to get on the same page?
Yeah, I think, look, it's one of the things we're really proud of, and not to be immodest, but I do think it's industry leading what we've done. And I do like the conversations I've had with parents. One of the statistics that we are announcing is that we now know that 97% of teens between the ages of 13 and 15 who we have moved into the teen account experience have just stayed in those more protective settings. They haven't tried to change them. They've just stayed in those more protective settings. So I think that's testament to the fact that it's working. We started to roll it out in the US last September and a few other English speaking markets. And now we're rolling it out kind of globally in the rest of the world. pretty big technical feat to do it because, as I said, we're moving tens of millions of teens into these more protective settings. So it might be like a teen might have had a private account to start with, and then they created they wanted it to be a public account. We're moving them all into private accounts. Uh,
All, even their accounts that were meant to be public,
Everything,
every
when we know you're under the age of 18, you are moved into the teen account experience, and your account just goes into a private account. So, that is a pretty big technical challenge. It's going really well. We now know that we have over 50 million teens have been moved into the teen account experience. 54 million, I think it is, which is amazing. And that doesn't even take into consideration some of our big markets outside the US, like India or Japan, where we're still rolling it out because we're doing it in a really staged way, because we want to get it right. So we feel like it's working. We feel like it's having the impact. There's more we can do. For sure. There's more work we're gonna be doing on it. We are adding additional features to account. So I think that's important, that like it's not just like a standstill, that we've done it, we've launched it, and kind of hands ringing, and we're finished. Not at all. That this is going to be a constantly evolving tool that we are growing to make sure that teens are having, the most protective experiences, and that the parents have that peace of mind that their teens are in the teen account experience on Instagram. I was going to say, one of the things I do with my teens, we were talking, like, just take it back there, is like family rules. I'm sure you probably already have some of these, and I'm sure lots of your listeners do, but they are, things like not having your phone at the table when you're having meals together, and not using the phone in your bedroom at night. And we really try to stick to all of those things. But I would say my daughter's 15 now, so she loves podcasts. And I think podcasts are brilliant, and brilliant for her. And like, you're learning so much, and it can be a really lovely way to kind of relax at the end of your evening. And so she was kind of saying, actually, I want to have my phone in my room in the evening because I like to listen to podcasts. And I was like, okay, actually, that's interesting. Let's have a conversation about that. So being able to talk about, as your teenagers getting older, they're using their phones and social media in very different ways. I was like, you know what? I really encourage you to listen to podcasts when you're chilling in the evening in your bedroom and you're kind of pottering around and doing all those kind of end of day things. But I don't want you looking at your phone when you should be going to sleep, or, I don't want you, looking at social media or whatever else it might be, and it's distracting you from your homework. So I think it's really important to have those conversations with your teen. Like, what are they actually doing when they're using their
Right, right. But
phone?
then the question is, and this is what you have to like turn to your gut to, is like is also then trusting your kid, like having these conversation and making these rules, and then allowing them to do it, trusting your kid. But then also, I guess, like with the teen accounts, still having the supervision, but I don't know, just kind of like letting it's so hard to just release it, and you give you a little bit. It's like give a mouse a cookie, you give them a little bit, and they're still teenagers. They're just worried with how far they're going to take it. I'm so curious what podcasts your 15-year-old daughter is listening to.
She listens to loads of podcasts, and actually so we live in London. But she loves the States. We came to California for a holiday like in October, so to LA and that whole area. And she listens to loads of podcasts that are US. And she has like a natural curiosity, and she listens to some things that are like history related because she's doing some exams, and you kind of go deeper on subjects, and it's much more conversational. So she listens to everything and anything, and I have conversations with her about what is it and why, and what's the things you enjoy. I do think just keeping those conversations going is just so important. We have there's a family center, a Meta family center. Um, it's really easy to find if you Google it. And it has got so many tips and tricks and conversation starters to help parents, particularly in that beginning space. So like your teenager might be getting their phone for the first time, or you might be having a conversation about, social media, and they're turning 13 and all those things. It's really great. It really, it's even if a parent out there spends 30 minutes on a Friday morning just going through some of these the material that we have on the Family Center, it really helps you to, I think, it really helps you to have some confidence to have some of these conversations, particularly parents who might not be on Instagram. Like, so they might not have used Instagram in the past, and now their teenager is about to embark on having an Instagram account. So it really helps them to understand what are teen accounts, what can you expect from teen accounts, what can you expect kind of from Meta more broadly. We've got experts in, child psychiatrists, psychologists in, we've got like nonprofit teachers, etc., who've come and helped us to build this kind of material that really speaks to parents. So I would really encourage any parent out there to just spend a little bit of time. Also, when your teen is in the teen account experience on Instagram, and if they do want to change any of those settings and they're under the age of 16, they have to get parental approval. Do have to have an Instagram account in order to give that parental approval. Again, I'd really encourage people just to make sure you are on whatever app your teenager is on. You should be on it as well.
You should know what's going on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And I think it's important that people just, even if they want to go deep, um, but just that you have a good sense of what the app is. And when your teen says, "Oh, I saw a story or a reel," you actually know what they're talking about, and you can kind of meet them where they are.
completely. I feel like something that I'm learning through this, which I feel like I knew, but it's just being cemented by our conversation, is just how these conversations have to start happening even before their teens, obviously. Like iPads are in our world, and like we said, there's screens in our world, and there's engagement with these screens that has to be taught. There have to be some guardrails from the beginning. And I think if you have those from the beginning and you are continually communicating about them, that by the time that they're teens, it's not such a shock that there are some rules that go along with having this awesome platform now,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So I feel like it's so much for us parents just being involved from the get-go. And yes, like on your side, I mean, I'm so appreciative, and you've made it your responsibility to protect our kids, but so much of this is also the parents being able to continually have open communication with their kids from the beginning of their lives.
Look, I think that's absolutely right, and I think there is a real responsibility on us on Instagram. I'm taking incredibly seriously, um, and we want parents to know that when their teen is using Instagram, that they are in the teen account experience. I would also say, which is really good news, is that we're extending teen accounts to both Facebook and Messenger as well. Yeah, starting just like next week. So we have the teen accounts experience on all three of those Meta platforms. We really learned from the way we rolled it out in for Instagram, and we brought it to the rest of those apps, which is great. But you're absolutely right. You should be having these conversations before your teen is old enough to want to join social media. I would encourage parents of you really when they have the phone to begin with, like because often they buy a phone for a child when they're a little bit younger than 13. It might be, when they're just leaving. I mean, different countries have different ages where people kind of move up to a different school level. But often parents can in the UK, in London, it's often around the age of 12, 11 and 12. You might have a phone for your teen because they're going to that, different type of schooling. And so you should start to have the conversations then because they've been given a phone to be able to be in touch with their parents, which is fundamentally why you've probably given them the phone. But then you say, okay, so here's how you need to use the phone. And I don't want you to be distracted by it. And you only get to use it at certain times of the day or whatever else it might be. But I think it's really important to start those conversations even before you join social media at the age of 13.
Yeah. And so interesting because, like, how do you handle this like digital parenting challenge though, where every parent has different rules, and I'm sure in talking to all these parents, it makes it confusing for you and how to set up these accounts. So how do you handle like this digital parenting issue where we all have different rules?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think with teen accounts, we spoke to parents globally in many different countries. And actually it was encouraging to hear that actually parents, no matter kind of where they were living, kind
Uh-huh.
of have the same concerns, as I
Uh-huh.
said, which is what teen accounts addresses, which is who can contact my teen, the content that they see and the time they're spending. I'd say from my own experience, it can be hard because different parents and different families have different rules. And it can be kind of an awkward conversation with me. I'm sure you've had this, like, you might say,
Definitely, especially and when other parents are around too, it's very awkward, and you have to in front of them, you say, "Well, their family has different rules than our family," and that is just that's just what I go with, and that's just what it is. That's it. There doesn't need to be any more explanation, but yeah, it can be awkward.
awkward. And I think, you have to just, as you say, you have your family rules that you want to stick with. I would say, like, if my teens, when they were a bit younger, my son, if he was having a sleepover, I would just say, like, absolutely not allowed to have the phone in his bedroom. He's only 12. And so that's just like the non-negotiable. And I will say that to the mom or the dad of the other family and say, like, please take his phone away from him. And also, like, if they're going to be gaming, that's great, but kind of try to limit it to a certain period of time, and definitely not just before they're going to go to bed, because they're not going to go to sleep if they're, like, tired thinking about some strategy pirate game or whatever they were doing. So I have those conversations with other parents, but I just think we should universally, like, know that it can be awkward and just feel good about how you're parenting your children. um and ask around. Like, most parents are going through the same thing. I think there are very few parents who feel like they've got it and it's working really well. I think all parents think that they're, doing okay, but actually could be doing it differently.
We're always concerned about what everybody else is doing. That's just sometimes the culture that we live in. But I think you're right. Like, we have to really listen to our gut first and foremost and not let the awkward situations derail us. I have right now, as a 7-year-old, Sonny has a friend who has very loose rules with the iPad, very, very loose rules. He can play in the room, he can play whenever, no times. He's on YouTube, like, he's not on YouTube Kids. I mean, Sunny's not allowed on YouTube. He's only on YouTube Kids. And I've had, like, he goes over to his house a lot, and I'm like, is this one of those things where he's at his house and I just like let him just do whatever this kid gets to do? Or is this already starting to set up this dynamic and I have to start these kind of rules now and talk to these parents now? Like, what would you tell me to do?
Well, look, it's honestly, it's really hard. I have had similar experience, and I've tried to very kind of subtly say to the parent, um, because usually it means that, like, it's going to make their lives a bit harder if they're gaming too much or if they're on their iPad too much, because we all know, like, we all, as human beings, we all need that downtime before bed or before rest or before a meal or whatever, and so I do. I will try to say it. I'll also have a conversation. My son's called Tom. I'll have a conversation with him and I'll say, hey, you're going over to this person's house. Like, I know that they have looser rules than we have, um, but just remember, they have an amazing garden, and you should play football, and you should do all these other things as well. And, like, it's fun and cool to do your gaming, and you're chatting to your friends on it, and that's brilliant. But don't forget, there's other things that you can do. And I find just reminding them, because they're little, and sometimes you need to remind them actually of some of the other things they can do, because I think, kind of get slightly stuck in a rush, right, where they just think that's the only thing they can do. And
Yeah.
I think just kind of reminding your teen is a great thing to do. Just kind of remind them of things that they really enjoy doing, when they're not using their phones.
Which aspect of these teen accounts would you say you're the most proud of and that you feel like have made the most impact?
I think there's two things. I think one is that I think the thing that we at Instagram, everyone who's involved in developing teen accounts, there's a huge team behind this.
Mhm.
I think is the fact that that teens are automatically moved into the teen account experience. We really took it a step further by doing that. So, that every teen under the age of 18, when we know that that's what their age is, that they're just automatically moved into this experience. So we've kind of taken the pressure off the parent. They just know behind the scenes, this is what happens when your teen is on Instagram. So
Mhm.
I do feel really proud that we've taken that step further by automatically enrolling and moving all teens into the teen account experience. The fact that we've differentiated the older and the younger teen is also really important. I think that's
I
really
agree.
to kind of parents, and the difference between a 13-year-old and a 17-year-old is really quite like it's quite significant. Um,
Completely.
and I think the fact that we've built these protections in such a way that actually if you are in that 13 to 15 age group, that you can't change those settings without your parent giving the approval. I think they're the two things that I think have really made the difference. And I think parents have appreciated it. We've seen we did a survey in the US, just with US parents with Ipsos, asking them about teen accounts, and 94% of parents said they think the teen accounts is helpful to them and to the way they're thinking about their teens using Instagram. That's a big number, right?
It's a
So
big number. I have been working with you for a little while and talking about teen accounts on my podcast for a bit. And when I first started reading them, my first thought was like, how didn't this already exist? But then I was like, obviously, social media is very, very new and we're still
yeah,
figuring it all out. But this is so amazing. Like, this really does take the pressure off. Like, I feel like I would still want to micromanage just a little bit because it just the vastness of social media scares me, but the fact that you have done this makes me feel so much less stress going into Sunny being a teenager, honestly, because it's like it would be too many rules for me to make without knowing how to make them or what the landscape actually looks like.
yeah, it's a great point because we've been building tools specifically for teens for many years. I think we now have 50 tools that
Amazing.
we
I
built.
want the tools on my
Yeah.
account.
And you can, some of them you can absolutely have on your account as well. Um, but we were finding when we were speaking to parents about it, they kind of felt overwhelmed. That they look, it sounds great. We've built, 50 tools to keep your young person safe. But I go, where do I find them? What do I do with them? And how do I turn them on? I think there was an appreciation, but a sense of kind of feeling
Like, this is
overwhelmed.
a lot for me to learn how to manage this situation. Yeah.
Exactly. And so with Tina Cans, we really like try to solve for that by just making it a really simple and easy process that you don't have to, if you're the parent, you don't have to do anything. You just know that all of those tools are defaulted on for your teen if they're under the age of 18. And we've added two new tools into the teen account experience. One is Instagram Live. So you might have used Instagram Live. It's fun. It's basically kind of a podcast kind of
It was a very COVID thing for like I was doing we were all going live a lot during COVID.
yeah, absolutely hit the nail on the head. And it's, yeah, it's fun. But what we really, when we were speaking to parents about this, is that while we have already for actually quite a long time defaulted that if you're under the age of 18, you can't use Instagram Live. What we did with the teen accounts is we've restricted it such that if you're in that younger age limit, the 13 to 15-year-old age limit, you have to get parental approval now if you want to use IG Live. So again, that's really, I think it's just showing some progress. Like we're really trying to help parents to understand that actually we are, putting your young person in these more protective settings, and that if the teenager does want to use IG Live, that's absolutely fine, but they will have to get your approval. And that hopefully will then precipitate a conversation with you and your teen to say, okay, how come? What do you want to, who do you want
What
to
are
talk
you using this
about
for?
IG Live? Yeah, and it might be some like really fun reason, great, but you want to have that conversation. You want to be part of that decision making. So I think that's really important. And then the second tool that we've you brought into the teen account experience is our nudity filter. So this is to scare parents, and I don't want to scare parents, but I think it's important that you do know and understand this, which is we have very strict rules about nudity and about content, any kind of sexual content on Instagram. And if you break those rules, like we find the content and we remove the content. So I hope parents have um, a good level of reassurance that we take those issues incredibly seriously. But we developed a nudity filter which is on like IGDMs. And already, before we even developed teen accounts, at teens under the age of 18, we have the nudity filter turned on. So in DMs, they don't if they were sent a nude image, it would be blurred and they can't see it.
Or they can't send
Um,
one. Hmm.
Exactly, they can't set one, and send a pop-up explaining why and why it's important that they don't share any kind of very personal, very kind of potentially explicit images. What we've done again with teen accounts is that we've made it such that, again, if you're in that younger age group, that 13 to 16, you cannot change the default of the filter being turned on without your having parental approval. And again, honestly, as a parent of a 15-year-old, I don't ever imagine my daughter coming and asking me to change that.
I
Um,
can't imagine.
that conversation would be a very strange one. But, you never know.
You
Um,
never know.
but I
Uh-huh.
know as a parent that she cannot do anything with that unless we have a conversation. But they're just two examples of the types of tools that we've previously built that we're bringing into the teen account experience, and giving those additional protections to those who are under the age of 16. And we will continue to do that.
Yeah,
You and your listeners will certainly hear more and more of our features moving into the teen account experience as we're building them out and as we understand how the tool is being used.
that makes sense. And what about like you talked about the time blocks, but I'm thinking about kids using them at school. Is how has that been? I know some schools are banning them, or some schools make them check the phones in the morning and then take them at the end of the day. How are you feeling about all that?
Yeah, it's a really important conversation, isn't it? And it's happening everywhere. I think it is, like we were talking about, it's like part more and more of like parents having a bit more is it agency or interest in the time that their teenagers are spending on their phones. So look, I think it's really not for Instagram to, I think, to tell you whether or not your teen should have their phone in school. I think that it's really important that the teen and the school make those decisions. And as I said, if you're in the supervisory tool, the supervision tool on Instagram, you can go in and you can block, like,
The
you can
certain time hour,
certain
the
times,
yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I think that's the way we are addressing it, which is like we're giving parents the
The
tools
freedom.
to be
Hmm.
able to do that,
Hmm.
depending on their teen and the time they spend in school. And are there certain periods of time that you really want to block the phone? Or there other periods of time that actually it's okay for them to have the phone and you feel actually more comfortable that your teen has the phone in school because you want to be able to get in contact with them? That's totally fine. Want to give you the tools that you can, if you want to, you can block it and you can make it a bit more purposeful, that they can only use Instagram at certain times of the day. The sleep mode, as we call it on Instagram, is important because there is no, you can't go to your doctor or a therapist and say, what's the amount of time that my 14-year-old should be spending on social media, because there's no conclusive evidence
Because
as
all
to
our kids are different too, and how it impacts them and affects them is different as well.
exactly. And so it makes it hard for parents, right? Because they're like,
It's so confusing.
half an hour? I don't know. And so we have a 60-minute like limit reminder,
Yeah.
within Teen
Do the
Account.
parents get the reminder and like a notification? It says your kid has been on for 60 minutes or
So if they're in the supervisory tool, they can see more about the amount of time that their teen is spending. I think the sleep mode part of it, that's actually something that is new to Instagram, and actually we're very proud of it because there is there is more evidence around sleep being really important to teens. It's important to all of us, of course, but like teens are developing and they're growing and their brains are developing at extraordinary rates. And so actually being able to have good sleep and undisturbed sleep is really important. So in the sleep mode, where again it's automatically turned on, no notifications between 10 and 7 a.m. I think that's a really important tool. I think it really does speak to some parents' concerns, which is the nighttime, the use of the phone at night, because we're all in different bedrooms and we're all these things. You know that your teen, if they even do have their phone in their bedroom, and again, that's your family rule, there's no judgment here, um, is that that they're not getting notifications during that period of time, and hopefully they're having a good sleep. We're proud of that. I think it's really speaking to and responding to where the evidence lies.
yeah. This is making me think. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna let Sonny have his phone in his room ever.
Yeah, and you could decide that it's going to be in the communal parts of the home, and that's
Right.
it's I do think every family
Every family has their
has,
own rules. And that's the hard part is like we have to continue to not judge. I'm one of those people as a parent, and I want to urge this for everyone that like we all need to tune into what feels best to us and try as hard as we can to tune out the noise, to listen to episodes like this and learn all the information and then do what you want with it. But I also have to stop myself from judging other parents as well, because I definitely do that. I see the iPads and the phones at dinner, and that bothers me, and I have to stop.
yeah. Look, I think look, I completely agree. I think we are. I think as parents, we're just hot wired to worry,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah.
which is hard. And I think it's again, I think peace of mind. The parents that you do have a peace of mind, that you can relax a little bit, because of teen accounts on Instagram. I feel really good about that. But you can also, the ability to just say no.
Is
Um,
you have that.
yeah, you have that ability, and it's a hard conversation to have. We know that we've absolutely all been in that experience, but you can say no, and you can build those rules around your family and around your family life, and to feel good about that. Um, and like a lot of this, as I said, is signpost again to the family center on the Meta Family Center, because all of these things are addressed, they're like, and just expert advice, really easy ways to talk to your teen. And I think teenagers, I think the fact that, look, they are digital natives. They've been growing up in this space, and actually they're very thoughtful. Like the vast majority of teens are very thoughtful. And I think when you talk to them about their use of social media and their use of Instagram, we talk to teens all the time about the use of Instagram. And I mean, they love the connection. They love to be able to message their friends. They love to be able to share like funny things. Like, so they'll share reels, and they'll share joy. They'll, post a story to say happy birthday. All of those things are really fun. And like, I think we all want to encourage our teens to have that kind of fun in their lives, but we also want to know that they are, when they're using Instagram, they're having like a positive experience. And that, look, it'll never be perfect. I can't say that your teen won't see something that we would hope that they wouldn't see. Um, but that we've built, and we're building an infrastructure, and have built an infrastructure, reinvesting it to make sure it doesn't happen. But also that they can have these conversations with you, and that we allow for that. Like we're trying to encourage, that through the parental supervision tool, all of the resources, that like you're able to, you as a parent feel a bit more like you're informed, and so you can have good conversations with your teen. Like it's not this kind of big black
More
hole.
empowered, like you're the one that
Exactly.
knows the information, and you don't feel like your teen is teaching you or telling you, or and you can't, separate the truth from what their wants and needs are. I forget that kids and teens actually thrive with structure, obviously, thrive with some sort of discipline and some sort of rules.
Yeah.
And sometimes we think like being their best friend and saying yes is going to like advance the relationship, but no, we actually have to set rules for them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, when you have younger children, it can be hard, actually. It can be really hard to say no, like the tantrums and all of those types of things. Like it's hard. Then they become teens, and you're worried you're going to get the silent treatment. You're worried that they're not going to tell you things if you say no. But I think you're absolutely right. My experience as a parent, is they really thrive on rules and being consistent. That's something that I find hard, honestly, as a working parent. I can have all the best intentions, and
It's
then
so true.
I might have something I need to do or whatever, and I kind of, it all goes out the window for half an hour, and then I feel terrible about it, and I shouldn't be. You're punishing yourself for something that, honestly, it's
That
hard
you
to.
can't control. I mean, Sonny woke up and I was doing this, and so he's now immediately on his iPad. Like there's things that we have to do, or that we can't not that we can't control, but it's just
And just give ourselves a bit of a break.
a great some grace. Yeah.
Give ourselves some grace, give ourselves a bit of a break, and but also like in the knowledge that, that, like I would say, if your teen is using Instagram, that you kind of, okay, well, they're over there and they might be using Instagram, but I know I've got a peace of mind that actually that they've built this experience for them that is specifically for
Hmm.
teenagers.
Hmm.
I
I
think
can
that's
turn off that part of my brain a little. Yeah.
that's what we hope. I mean, honestly, parents will tell us, like, we're constantly talking to parents, and parents are very honest with us
Hmm.
about everything,
Yeah.
and so they will tell us. But as I said, so far our surveys, the conversations, the research we've done with parents is they do really appreciate, and they feel like there's a little bit of a burden that's being eased,
Lifted from them.
which is
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, this has been so amazing. Like I feel already like I don't have a teen yet, but I feel even more empowered just to listen to my gut and to have a standpoint when it comes to this, and just to also know, like, it's just so amazing to know that these large companies are hiring women like you to do this for us, because
Oh,
it's so important, and you can see the effect that social media seems to be having on kids, and maybe not even social media, but just like the amount of screen time that it's having on kids. And I think that in and of itself is very freeing for
yeah.
all of us.
Oh, that's good
So,
to hear. I also know you said your son is still very young, but
yeah.
we all have teens and tweens in our lives, don't we?
Yeah.
Nieces
Yes.
and nephews and friends' children's. And actually sometimes your close friends' children might actually come to you, or you might see something, and I think that's important if you even though you might have younger children right now, and your listeners might have babies, and this feels like a long way away.
Mhm.
Actually, we're surrounded by teens.
Yeah. There's so many moms on here, I mean, that are listening with teens. I would say I have younger kids than probably most listening, but I do feel like even just knowing this, like with my nieces who are about to be 11 and starting to navigate all this, it's very, very helpful for me. I think it's just important for adults to know that yes, like we have some responsibility in having these conversations, but that this thing also exists and you should know about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that you just keep those conversations going. And as I said, your nieces and nephews, if you're like, you're probably a very cool aunt, I would imagine.
Try
But
to
they'll
be.
probably talk to you. They might talk to you more than their
They
parents certain
sometimes
periods
they
of their
do.
time. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And
Mhm.
I think that's important. And so you all feel equipped that you can have these conversations. I think it is like a big societal conversation. And I think the wonderful thing now is that we are having some of these bigger conversations about it. And for your listeners to know that, like, we're listening, we really are. We have whole teams of people at Instagram and at Meta more broadly who do this day in, day out, and are constantly striving to get it right. And any parent out there, please invoke us. Please say, you can't do this because Instagram said you shouldn't be doing it. And there's time limits, and we've set the time limits, and they're on Instagram, and that's it. And honestly, if parents invoke us and it helps them to ease the tension of the conversation between them and their teen, I think that's great. Honestly, that they know that we've built this and we've built it with them in mind. And honestly, as I said, 97% of teens that we surveyed between the ages of 13 and 15 who were in the teen account experience haven't changed those settings. That just tells us that they appreciate it, that
Mhm. That
they're
they're in the right place.
in the right place. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this with us. It really means so much to me, and I know it will mean so much to everybody listening out there. For anybody interested in hearing more about this and the teen accounts, where can they go to?
So you can go to teenaccounts.instagram.com, and also just Google like the Family Center on Meta. It's really easy to find. Loads and loads of information there that we can hopefully help parents have those good conversations.
Okay, amazing. Anything that I missed?
No, I don't think so. It was a great conversation. Thank you so
Okay,
much. I could chat to you forever. I
I
mean, well,
know, it's so fun. It's
we'll
like,
probably have some mom time.
I mean, it's just, I just have to get my kid off his iPad. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all.
This is so real though, isn't it? This is like you're a working mom, you've got a little one, you're trying to have these conversations to help other moms
It's
navigate
this
it,
is
and then you're like,
exact.
This is exactly, isn't it?
It's
It's like,
exactly why I wanted to work with you guys because, like I said, even though he's not a teen yet, it's something that is in my life every single day. And just the conversation piece and the awareness of it, it's in my life. And I know it will be in a bigger way and I'll be even more prepared. So it's
it's
perfect.
like it's relevant. Like I think that's the thing that like gets me up in the morning. It's like it is just there is no easy solution to it. We just all have to try to figure it out as a
Completely
group of
as it
parents.
comes. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much for your
Oh
time.
my God, of course. Thank you
Yeah.
guys.
Bye. Bye bye.
Bye.